What's going on, traders, and welcome to this special episode where I'm going to teach you how to safely trade VTIQ Nikola Motors this upcoming week and into next. So in this video, we're going to be doing a technical analysis with just price action and volume. Then we'll go back in with indicators to either confirm or deny the bias that we come up with. We're going to be doing a top-down analysis. So starting off on the daily chart, working our way down to the hourly, 30-minute, and finally 15-minute time frame to pick out key areas of support and resistance that you can structure a trade plan around. If you're interested in these types of analysis, then I do this every single weekend on this set of tickers over here on the left-hand side. It's called the Weekly Watchlist. I'd encourage you to head on over to the channel. First of all, subscribe and turn bell notifications on so you're notified every single time I drop a new analysis, but check out some of those videos to see if this is something you would be interested in. So starting on the daily chart, I'm just going to go ahead and mark off key areas starting from left to right of support and resistance. So we have a base down here at 1048. Next key resistance seemed to be up here where we got rejected on that pin bar. From there, we have another level here, which then turned to support. Again, happening here, rejection, and then turned into support here. Here we had a double top and then it got rejected on this day, but once we gapped up, that's really when the party started and things got kicked off to the upside. We have our all-time high way up here at 35.38, which we can of course mark in. And of course, you can just tell how parabolic the move is just because there's really no market structure that we can pick out on the daily chart here. Once the move really happened, it's essentially 1, 2, 3, 4 days of price action. We traveled over $15, so absolutely parabolic, unsustainable to the upside for the long term. Anything could happen, but the odds don't favor it. We'll drill down into the hourly to pick out some more levels. So again, continuing from left to right, we have an area of resistance on the chart here, which then turned into support once we were above it. Again, it looks like we have a very similar pattern happening here, area of resistance, it then turned to support. We can always adjust these levels as we need to. Here, it looks like the $27 whole dollar mark, if I could get it exact, not quite, 27.02 will do. We had rejection here, resistance, resistance, resistance. Once we were above it, it acted as support, and then support almost to the T here on this big pullback candle here at the end of the day on Wednesday. On the 30-minute time frame, things become a little bit more clear once again. It looks like we have a temporary support here where our bull flag pulled back into. And then lastly, I also want to point out this area of resistance where we got rejected right around the close on Wednesday here. And then lastly, the 15-minute, it's going to look very similar, but I do want to point out one thing here on the 15-minute chart. If we zoom in, it looks like, and this is something that I was watching today actually, if we draw in a resistance trend line that looked something like this, we respected it for most of the day where we set our high of the day and then our lower high, we draw in, connect those highs. We then respected it throughout the rest of the day, but finally broke it towards the end of the day. So this is something interesting that I'm sort of watching to play out here. We have sort of a bull flag happening where we have a pole forming and now we see the flag start to form. We do have an inverted hammer here at resistance, which would normally imply that we want to see continued selling pressure, but we're going to wait and sort of see how this all plays out tomorrow morning. The key thing that we're watching is this 31.31 level. If we can get above it, I could easily see this bull flag breaking out to the upside and getting a retest of the all-time high up here at 35.38. And of course, with all of the eyes on it, you can see just how increased the volume was today compared to some of the days in the past. But with all of these eyes on it, I think if that level breaks, a retest of the all-time high could certainly be in store. Anything higher than that, we're going to be in blue sky territories, so play that as whole and half dollars as well as any intraday levels that do form. Anything to the downside though, and our key support is really going to be this one here at $27, the whole dollar mark. You can see just how many times the price has interacted with that level and how many data points we have around it. So just think of all the people who are long up here. If price breaks down below it and people are watching it as key support, think of all the stops that will be triggered at this level. So people stop out below this level, causing them to have to sell to get out. Then we have a, it's not a it's the opposite of a short squeeze called a liquidation break to the downside, where people continue to sell to get out of their long positions, and we could very well wind up down here at our 21.35 support. I think that one's slightly more important in terms of support than our level here at 24.35, just because we have a little more structure. It was resistance and then it turned into support here. So again, we're just going to be watching and monitoring to see what happens around 31.31 or below 27.02. And this is is, of course, granted that we don't gap up or down above any of these levels early into tomorrow, and that we sort of open in a respectable range somewhere around this area. And with something like this, anything is sort of possible pre or in post market. So to go back in with our indicators and confirm or deny what we're kind of thinking of, we have the Bollinger Bands, which are the set of 3 gray lines. It's 2 standard deviations away from the middle Bollinger Band, which is the 20 SMA. Below that, we have the blue line, which is the 50 SMA. Below that, the 200 SMA. And finally, down here, we have the CCI, which is very similar to the RSI, but I think it tracks prices a little bit better. So on the daily chart, it didn't take the Bollinger Bands for us to really know that this thing is overextended to the upside. We sort of already knew that. Nothing else is really in play in terms of moving averages, at least. But if we look at the CCI, one key thing to note here is that we have a negative divergence going on in 2 areas. So if we look back here at our previous high, CCI was way up here, marking over 450. If we look at this high here, this high is lower than this one, of course, so we have a lower CCI reading. But what happens as price continues to mark its way even higher and higher? Price did not even come close to that 450 level. We're currently sitting in the high of, in here on the CCI is currently sitting right around 300. So negative divergence there. And then if we continue to look in a more day-by-day fashion, so we have this day here where the high was up here. CCI topped out here around 300 as we talked about. Next day, prices continued to move higher. What did the CCI do? It moved lower. And the same thing has happened on Wednesday here. So interesting negative divergence going on that you certainly want to take note of. It's not an end-all, be-all, but definitely something you want to keep in the back of your mind. So on the hourly chart, we're starting to finally come in off of our upper Bollinger Band, which is no surprise considering we had a day of sideways consolidation / minor pullback. So we're not quite as overextended on an hourly time frame as we are on the daily. Our 20 SMA middle Bollinger Band isn't really in play yet, neither is the 50 or the 200. And again, that CCI still maintains its negative divergence. So on the 30-minute time frame, things become a little bit more interesting just because our 20 SMA, aka middle Bollinger Band, starts to come into play. You can see it acted as support here. This didn't quite get all the way there, but it's certainly in the web effect, so kind of support there. And then once we dipped down below it, it certainly acted as support. And this is, again, just another fake dip break down below where it acted as support, and now prices are trading above it. So interesting there. Will it continue to hold up and keep prices up? We'll kind of wait and see, but just know that it has acted as historic support. Again, pulling back off of that upper Bollinger Band. Nothing else in terms of moving averages are really in play. And if we check in on the CCI, it makes perfect sense that, again, the CCI is pulling back. When prices are pulling back, it's starting to bounce off of our lower negative 100 level, which is the lower red line down here. So it's in a perfectly acceptable range. It's sort of cooled off, if you will, on the 30-minute time frame, and it's not overextended in one direction or the other. And lastly, on the 15-minute time frame, again, you can see that our 20 SMA has acted as support multiple times. Support, in here, support, and then once we broke down below it, it acted as a little bit of resistance, and right now it is currently propping up the prices on this last 15-minute bar. The next key thing to note in terms of moving averages is our 50 SMA is now starting to act as support as well. You can see we did form a hammer off of it and at the end of the day here on Wednesday, which has caused this little bounce. So if we do start to see the bull flag breakout and a move to the upside and you miss it, potentially watch for the 50 SMA to start to catch up and move to the upside for a pullback entry. It could certainly be in play. Also, on the flip side of the coin, if this inverted hammer here leads to a sell-off and a retest of this 2702 level, don't be surprised if it doesn't quite make it all the way down there and it gets hung up on the 15-minute 50 SMA before moving all the way into that support level. You can see, again, just how it acted as support here, and if we scroll back, not too much price data around it, but certainly in the near term, it has acted as support. 200 SMA still quite far away, not really in play yet. And our CCI, checking in on that, it is starting to make a bullish move to the upside, which is no surprise considering this nice little pop that we had at the end of the day. We really just want to maintain and make sure that it doesn't get too overextended to the upside. Again, when we start to see these negative divergences, you can see if we look at this one here, we had it make a new high, and then as it the CCI pulled back and prices continued to pull back, it eventually led to a nice pullback in price. So it's not a guarantee, but normally when things are moving out of sync like that, you can generally expect that things are starting to get a little top heavy or overextended in one direction, and that a pullback is necessary. So again, just to recap what we've talked about, we sort of have a bull flag forming here on the 15-minute time frame. We're really watching our key levels here at 31.31 to monitor for continuation to retest the all-time high if we get the breakout above, or if we break down, we're watching for support to come into play at 27.02. But if it gives, expect all of the people who have to close their positions out around this area to push prices and sell and essentially cause a liquidation break all the way down to our 21.35 support, just because it offers a little bit more market structure than our sort of more temporary support here at 24.35. So that's kind of what I'd be watching. All eyes on 31.31 and 27, the whole dollar mark. Again, anything higher than our all-time high. Blue sky territories, $1.5 as we move up there, as well as any intraday levels that do form. So if you enjoyed this analysis, be sure, like I said, to check out some of those other videos that we post over on the channel and subscribe if you find them valuable or interesting. Let me know down below in the comment section if you enjoyed this analysis, or just simply leave the video a thumbs up. I wish you all a green trading week, and stay safe out there trading VTIQ.